Do you know why JD Vance was so into couches?
Why?
He
Why?
really just enjoyed the thrill of the chaise. But it was just one night stand.
More cushion for the pushing.
Oh, nice. Nice.
When he has a fight with his wife, he can't even sleep on the couch because we all know what'll happen then.
Oh, boy.
I'm just warning you, Jeremiah, there will be at least 2 couch jokes that come out of me.
We're getting them out of our system, Jeremiah. It's good. It's good.
Like JD did.
Editors, ask the Startup Podcast for a raise.
You're listening to the Startup Podcast. This is a Reacts episode. Industry insiders having frank debates about the latest tech, politics, and business news. Whether you're a founder, investor, or operator in a startup, you'll gain insights into how current events connect to broader themes and trends that impact your startup, your investments, and your day-to-day operational decisions. The conversation starts now.
Hey, I'm Chris Saad.
I'm Jeremiah.
I'm JD Vance. Sorry, one for time. Okay, I had to.
Leave that in, editors. Go ahead, Ben.
I'm Ben Parr.
Ben's just part of the furniture. And I'm Yaniv Bernstein.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Startup Podcast Reacts. On today's show, we're going to talk about SearchGPT, OpenAI's experiment to defeat Google's dominance of search. We're going to talk about Meta AI Studio. Doesn't have a chance to engage anyone except teen girls. We're going to talk about the state of AI investment, in particular the Llama Lounge, which is the top AI event in the world. And just by coincidence, we have Jeremiah Owyang on the show, who is the founder and creator of that event, and he can tell us all about it. We're going to talk about all of that and much, much more. This episode is going to be hilarious. These guys are fun. Stay tuned.
Whether you're starting or scaling your company's security program, demonstrating top-notch security practices and establishing trust is more important than ever. Vanta automates compliance for SOC 2, ISO 27001, and more, saving you time and money while helping you build customer trust. Plus, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center, all powered by Vanta AI. And it gets even better. Just for TSP listeners, you can get $1,000 off Vanta when you go to vanta.com/TSP. That's VANTA.com/TSP for the Startup Podcast to get $1,000 off. Now, Chris, some people are into couches. We're into the Startup Podcast Pact. And what that means is if you listen to our show and get value from it, we don't charge you anything for this. We just ask one thing from you. Subscribe to us in your favorite listening app. Give us a rating and review wherever you can. Apple Podcast is the best. Subscribe to us on YouTube and give us a shout out anywhere you have an audience. LinkedIn is a good place for that. This really helps us grow the show, keeps us motivated, allows us to get the best guests and to keep reaching more founders. And with that, let's jump into the show. So the first thing we wanted to talk about today is that OpenAI have recently announced SearchGPT. So this is their search competitor. For those of you who have already used Perplexity AI, the idea is that you now have a search engine that is fused with a large language model. Now, one of the issues that has always plagued something like ChatGPT in terms of search is that, first of all, it doesn't have the latest information. And secondly, it is prone to a certain amount of hallucination, to making up facts. So Perplexity AI has been a very fast-growing startup because it solves those problems. It gives you the up-to-the-minute search. It gives you references. It grounds everything in facts. And so you can use it much more comfortably as a substitute to Google for a lot of your searches. And now the big gorilla in the room, which is OpenAI, is joining this race. So everything old is new again. You know, the web has been about search. The internet has been about search for a long time. And now the big AI players are going onto Google's turf and trying to get your search traffic. So folks, what do we make of OpenAI's move here? And what does it mean for the future of the internet?
Yaniv, I think this is a really big deal. I think we're going to see the internet itself kind of transform. So the way we found information before, it kind of comes into 2 buckets. You actually have to go find a website that might aggregate all the information like Reddit or Wikipedia, or you might use the tried and true search tools like Google Search, which is pretty much the only player in town. But now there's a third way to get information that you need, and it really disrupts Google. You can get all of the search information you want just from a few simple queries, whether it's Perplexity or now the SearchGPT, but also this means you don't actually have to go visit other websites. And that changes media models, advertising models, when everything comes to you. And that breaks Google in so many ways because the way they do things is they make money off the clicking on the 10 blue links and all the ads that are exposed on the search and results page. So I think this is a fundamentally big change to the internet, that users will just have a few interfaces, because here's the big insight. The information is coming to the user. The user doesn't have to surf the web. And I did a blog post on this with my vision statement and received a lot of agreement and disagreement, but I'd love to hear your take.
The issue here is like, if people are using OpenAI SearchGPT, then all these things you just said come true, Jeremiah. The biggest problem is I'm not convinced yet that there will be mass adoption. Search is a really, really ingrained behavior. And for a lot of people, they use what the default is. You know, Google is the default on Google Chrome. It's the default on the iPhone. The default is Google. Google paid Apple who knows how much. It's many billions of dollars. And so what I think more likely is to happen is, like, you're already starting to see it. Google is implementing this kind of AI functionality already. It has the first version where you see Gemini answering questions in the top. And it'll probably look more and more a little bit like how SearchGPT, they'll kind of start to look more the same. I think it's hard to imagine that people will switch over their default search engine. And like, especially given that Google owns the Chrome browser, which is by far the most popular browser. So I don't think it will, you're not going to see people switch over a lot. You'll see like hardcore AI enthusiasts, you'll see a certain people, certain use cases. I think it's more likely Google implements what they like best out of OpenAI into Google. But unless OpenAI is willing to spend a whole bunch of money winning over like the iPhone search piece, then I don't think a ton will change.
I think you are onto something there, right? So distribution is king, especially when it comes to search and it comes to these new mainstream products. But you have to remember a couple of things. The first is this is going to be baked into ChatGPT as soon as the experiment, the prototype is over. ChatGPT is a massive product, the fastest product to 1 billion users, the fastest growing product in history. That is a certain amount of distribution there. And actually, it's now going to be baked into many, many AI products via the API. So you kind of get search for free baked into the ChatGPT API. You also have to remember Google itself disrupted, Alta Vista and Yahoo search, and Chrome disrupted, Internet Explorer. And so whenever a new platform shift occurs or a new breakthrough technology comes up, there is a chance for the deck to get reshuffled and a new winner to reemerge. And in Google's case, it was PageRank, right? They fundamentally rethought the way information storage and retrieval worked. The way to become a billionaire on the internet is to build an intent fulfillment machine, right? Uber gets you a ride, Airbnb gets you a housing, OpenTable gets you a reservation. And there was no better intent fulfillment machine in the history of the world than Google and search. OpenAI wants a piece of that lucrative intent fulfillment. And so there's huge dollars to go around, and they're likely to build the first AI native search engine at massive scale while Google, nibbles around the edges. I'm not saying it's a slam dunk. I'm just saying it's not a foregone conclusion. Google wins, period, full stop. I think there's an exciting battle to be waged, and I can't wait to see it. It's going to be good for users, basically, to watch these guys really battle it out.
If I were OpenAI, I'd actually, and maybe they are thinking about this, I'd think about a browser. Like an AI-first browser, I think that could gain some adoption. The window to the internet is the browser. Google knew this. This is why Google made it, and like it has that position. But if you ate into Chrome at all, you would grow in value very quickly.
That's a smart idea. And let's not forget that the biggest backer to OpenAI is
Microsoft.
Oh boy, they have a browser. Who knew?
And they have a search engine.
And they have an operating system, and they have distribution, and they have hardware, and they have devices.
And again, isn't it fun to see history repeating itself, where you're going to have like Google versus Bing and Chrome versus Internet Explorer, or Edge as it's called now? Yeah, it's going to be fun. I wanted to add another ingredient into the mix, because part of what makes Google's monopoly so unassailable in search, it's distribution, but it's also advertisers, right? It's actually a three-sided marketplace. The thing about Google is it makes a shit ton of money, and that means it can put more resources into search, more into distribution. For example, their Apple distribution deal. And another little piece of news I saw today is that Perplexity, as we mentioned, that was the first real AI search engine, has just cut a deal with a bunch of publishers to share ad revenue with them, which has been a bit of a controversy in the past. So I think Google have evolved from 10 blue links, although there's still a lot of that happening. But what they have that is just as important as their search engine is their advertising engine, both the
That's
Just
right.
the awesome distribution power of it, like the fact that there are so many advertisers on it, as well as the algorithm. And so for any of these folks to really be able to compete with Google search, they're also going to need to crack the advertising code. And it's not going to be easy.
So I expect by the end of this year, I've got a couple of predictions. We'll see if they come true, but one of them will be that we'll see experiments with sponsored sentences in foundational models in order to appeal to those advertisers and to try out those new revenue models. Obviously, this is $1 trillion market with the advertisers. It's still the lion's share of Google. And so Perplexity or OpenAI or Google themselves can figure out how to integrate those ads and keep those, whoever can steal those revenues or keep those revenues, I think we'll start to see that. So the way we'll see that is likely, like say, I'm looking for SUV. What are the top ones? It'll give some lists, and then it'll say Ford Explorer, Toyota Highlander, and then the Hyundai will give here. This is a sponsored sentence.
I'm not sure if it'll go down to the sentence level, but I do think there is an opportunity for new ad formats that feel native to AI and native to chat.
Well, that would be a sentence, wouldn't it?
Well, if you think about Google, it evolved from links to like widgets to modules to what have you. I'm not convinced that chat is the final word on AI interaction. I think these chat interfaces are going to start generating more and more UX, more and more prompts, more and more layouts. And I think it'll start to feel natural for pieces of functionality to be surfaced in the chat window or vice versa. And so you can imagine some of those starting to feel native and then ads starting to feel native within those UX metaphors. And so
I think that's
whether it's a sentence or it's a block or it's a carousel, I think you're right though. OpenAI is already, they'll figure out how to monetize. If they've got the eyeballs, they'll get the advertisers. That part of the marketplace will come running.
This sentence is sponsored by Ashley Furniture.
Oh my God.
I will let you finish the rest of it.
I thought it was sponsored by Octane AI, Ben.
Yeah, all of it, everything. Octane AI, if you have a store and you like money, buy Octane AI.
It looks like Microsoft has generated $12 billion in search or in advertising revenue because they have advertising ads from Microsoft Advertising. They already have some of this. It's not just Google's pie.
Right. So Microsoft has shown a willingness to replace or to augment huge parts of Bing with OpenAI's APIs. And you can imagine them ripping out the entire guts of Bing and replacing it with SearchGPT at one point. They have the advertisers, they have the surfaces, as we've talked about, they have Windows. And of course, everyone knows this, Android was a giant search distribution play, right? Defending against Apple. So there is, I think Microsoft would love to take another swing at mobile devices. If they're not working away in some lab right alongside OpenAI, building a Surface phone powered by some thin OS and a chat interface powered by ChatGPT, I would be floored. I'd be absolutely floored if that's not happening.
I mean, look, my money's still on Google, but it is an open contest to a certain extent. And you're right, Jeremiah, Microsoft is number 2, but they're a distant number 2.
Yeah.
I think the question is, how well can Microsoft and OpenAI integrate? Because you're right, they each have the missing piece of the puzzle. Microsoft has a strong ownership position in OpenAI, but they are separate businesses. And, there could be some antitrust or other government stuff that happens if they try to integrate too deeply. So Google's advantage is fully integrated, full stack. They are the incumbent. It is theirs to lose. And I don't know, I've been going back and forth on Google's execution since the LLM sort of renaissance, right? They started off very flat-footed. And then a bunch of their announcements, and I think it was I.O. or was it Cloud Next, sort of showed a willingness to disrupt themselves a bit, but the momentum seems to be going away again. Like their moves on search have stopped. And so I don't know if they're able to grasp this. I think there's a lot of dysfunction within the organization, but if they execute well, I think it's theirs.
All right, the next topic we wanted to talk about is Meta is rolling out an AI studio in the US for creators to build AI chatbots. And the key word there, I think, is creators, right? This is super consumer grade. It is not like the kind of technical thing that OpenAI did with GPTs. It's not these kind of customer support chatbots you can configure from some of these enterprise tools that have emerged. This is designed for everyday people and especially creators to jump into some kind of relatively lightweight and simple authoring environment and craft a chatbot. And I think the way they're positioning this is like, hey, if you are, Mr. Beast, come and create your Mr. Beast chatbot for your community. What do you guys think of this? What's the impact? Is this just a triviality? Is this a tip of the iceberg of Meta's bet on AI? Or is this really just Maybe they might even go deeper and go into enterprise tooling and customer support and all that sort of stuff.
I'll take first swing, and then I want to hear from Ben Parr, who's built these tools. So I've seen these around for a long time. We've seen character AI, which is built off fictitious or historical figures. We've seen a number of these chatbot tools emerge for creators to create their own. I think the big difference here is two things. Is that Meta Facebook has a tremendous amount of data about what we look at and who we like and who do we follow and the things we've said publicly and privately. And two, they have this distribution capability across WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook. So they're most likely to win this for creators. And by the way, I wouldn't say, Chris, this is for everyday people. It really feels like for people to have enough content to train against, really honestly, influencers like you.
Chris thinks of himself as everyday people.
He is everyday people.
This is an AI right now speaking to you.
So 7 years ago, Ben Parr actually built me a Jeremiah bot that was trained off some of my data and would talk to my fans. So it's kind of interesting. But let's hear from Ben Parr, man.
So for those who don't know, OpenAI, the first version of it in 2016 was chatbots on Facebook Messenger, which of course this does Facebook Messenger. And you could have back and forth with Rick Ross and Jason Derulo, Kiss, Aerosmith. And they were popular. People would message Lindsay Lohan. Don't ask what they messaged, but they would message these celebrities that we powered. But the tech wasn't there. There was no large language models. It was a lot of choosing your own adventure back and forth and a little bit of neural network stuff that we built. And we even have some patents around this. But
Ben's going to get rich on patent trolling.
I like it.
You should read our patents. They're insane. There's a whole market, as I'm seeing on the investor side, of people trying to build these celebrity focused, bring celebrities to life and all that. And I think there's a lot of FOMO around character AI in particular, which for those who haven't tried character AI, you can chat with your favorite anime character or fictional ones. And let's say some large percentage is used for, sexting with these characters, just to be clear. But they huge amounts of usage, especially among teenagers and kids. You would be crazy if the numbers are nuts. Just know they're nuts. But I don't think it works with real life people just because the fantasy element isn't there. Part of the reason why people are doing it is that the fantasy element, the lewd element, that sort of thing is what brings people back. I'm not really itching to speak to the AI version of Jeremiah or the AI version of Sam Altman or the AI version of anyone, really.
What if there was a couch character, Ben? Would you talk to them?
I know one politician who might be interested in that.
I'm looking at this article, right? And, I think one of it is to have a public-facing chatbot, but some of the things in this press release that people talk about is that users, as in creators, can build the bot for caption creation, post formatting, or meme generation. So I think what they're actually saying here is if you have a bot that knows what you know and speaks in your voice, yes, your audience can interact with it directly, or it can be your second brain. It can be an extension of you that does a bunch of the shit that you normally have to do yourself. And the question's always going to be the uncanny valley. I've experimented with AI creating content on my behalf in my voice, and so far it's been pretty underwhelming. But as you mentioned, Jeremiah, Facebook has a lot of content about a lot of people. And so if it can basically train itself on your voice, there's actually a multitude of uses beyond oh my God, I'm a Jeremiah stan and I just want to talk to Jeremiah bot all day long. I think there are other things we can do with it. And I think that is quite an interesting positioning.
But what else would you do with it, right? On Meta tools, it's not going to sit there posting on your behalf on Meta, right? You're going to chat to it. The little video here that they've got is you chatting to it through Messenger. And so it feels more like a one-on-one.
That's right.
You know what it feels like? It feels like OnlyFans powered by AI.
I think this is a great way for new forms of fan engagement.
I can have a Yaniv bot and I can be write a LinkedIn post for me about chatbot creations and it will talk in my voice, right? There are a lot of AI SaaS wrapper type tools at the moment that are we'll take your podcast transcript and create show notes and create social media about it. And so on. Like I said, they're not good enough to use. I've tried, but maybe this one would be good enough.
And think about Mark Zuckerberg. This is a bridge eventually to, 3D avatars in the metaverse where you can go and interact with influencers that you want to in the future.
Oh, yeah.
You can see where this is headed in several years. It's nothing too close, but this is a new form of fan engagement, right? And creators and influencers need other ways to generate engagement and also create new revenue streams. They cannot rely only on YouTube. They cannot rely only on one channel. So they need multiple ways. And for their top fans, they can let them engage in a one-on-one conversation. This is a deeper form of engagement. I think this is a big win for creators and their fans.
Yeah, I think, Yaniv, the aspect of like, hey, this is a utilitarian personal chatbot is not in the article I can see in TechCrunch. I think that part of it is they're leaving more for Meta AI. There's actually a whole AI Meta, I think, domain where it's more a ChatGPT clone. This feels like, hey, I can stand up a chatbot for my furniture store. I can set up a chatbot for my community, my fan community. I can set up a chatbot. You and I could set one up for the podcast. And it's a kind of a first-tier customer support, first-tier OpenAI engagement tool. And maybe every now and then you run a real chat with you really participating in the chat room, or at least one of your pimply interns doing it for you. But yeah, as we've all said also, that the idea that they have all the data and you can press a button and generate a second brain version of yourself based on all your likes and all your comments and all your chats and all of your wow. That's exciting. You can just imagine the little progress bar like churning away crunching all your metadata. And it's like, wow. They truly have all of my signal, personal, conversational signal, tastes and proclivities baked right into their data set. And that is something that Google does not have. Microsoft does not have. OpenAI.
No, Google could have it. Google could have it from your scraping email content.
Facebook has a unique set of data of how people actually speak. Facebook does. Meta does.
Google does not really. They have email maybe.
And they have search.
But search is not how people normally talk with each other.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
a lot of these early data sets, when they were building, history lesson for everyone, when they were like training the early, like the first AIs, like 2 decades ago, a decade and a half ago, there were not a lot of data sets that had a lot of conversational back and forth. They actually used the Enron emails as the basis for training some of the early AIs to converse back and forth because they were actually conversational.
Terrifying.
And they were public information from the courts. There were not lots of other sources. It was actually quite useful for the beginning things. And then now we have a lot more conversational data. But Meta has a lot more access than, say, Google theoretically does. Now, if Google was allowed to train on emails, that could be a different story. I don't know if they have that right. That would give them something. But like Meta has like really personal back and forth messaging to personally like go and use. And I mean, they're also built for that.
Don't forget, Google has chat information from all the phones. So I wouldn't say Google doesn't have some of these personal conversations.
You know what? I think one of the big things, it's interesting because it's all about the goals. So Meta has had a renaissance, and Mark Zuckerberg in particular, with the open source stance. And, for them, they don't have to make money off of selling the AI software. For them, it just like helps improve their products. And if the people are using their products more and sending more messages and chatting with their favorite influencers on Threads or on Meta, on Facebook or in the metaverse, they make money. And so they have lots more ways because they have also the open source so they can get more data through that. It's interesting, like the different motivations that these two companies have. And I love the position that like Meta, it's such a good PR position to be like, it's open source. We're not trying to monetize this versus Google's position.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's no like exact point. It's an interesting battle. You are right, Jeremiah. They do have a lot of conversational data that we're probably not giving credit for.
It is fascinating to watch each of these companies play to their different objective function and their different strategic interests and assets, right? Like where Amazon goes with this, where Nvidia goes with this, where Meta goes with this, where Google goes with this, and where Apple goes with this, right? Like an Apple on one end of the spectrum just wants to sell more hardware. That's all they want to do, right?
No, it's hardware and their solutions. They're pushing to cloud now. Personal cloud is their bigger growing moneymaker.
Yes, but Apple's core business, their core moneymaker is hardware. And they're a hardware first company and they monetize generation after generation of the hardware. And they're very proud and loud about, we don't monetize your data, we don't monetize services that much, we don't monetize your, the cloud.
The hell they don't.
They're always going to lean towards hardware, while Google's always going to lean towards aggregating your data, and Meta's always going to lean towards social. And so to watch
engagement,
to watch
e-commerce.
them carve out these lanes for themselves is very fascinating.
I agree with that.
Just a quick straw poll here. Who uses GPTs, so the custom GPTs from OpenAI in their daily lives?
No longer. It was fun for a few days.
Once in a while, I use it for a very specific task, and there are some good ones for like LinkedIn and all that, but not enough regular habits still. It's also, I'm starting to use, I have the desktop version of ChatGPT and it doesn't have the custom GPTs on it, at least in the version I have.
The reason I'm asking this is my impression is they've not been successful. Like if folks in tech like us don't use it, I can't imagine they're being used very much elsewhere. And I guess my point is we've talked previously on this podcast about whether chat is actually a particularly good interface for a lot of these use cases. And, my prediction is it's not. And I wonder if, the direction that we've taken this conversation, which is nearly like what Meta's really building is a model of you, like a digital twin.
You and
a
us.
linguistic digital twin is interesting, but like, hey, we've got this studio for creating chatbots. That instantiation of it is perhaps not that interesting. I wouldn't predict this is going to really set the world alight.
Yeah, I would say for kids and people who are fans of celebrities, this is a fun gimmick for some period of time. The real instantiation, and we've had this debate on the podcast as well, is I think ultimately the way this looks looks like Samantha from Her, right? It's one personality. It's what Sam Altman calls your senior employee. It's one personality that knows who you are, what you care about, all your data sets, all your friends, all your relationships, all your proclivities. It is able to reach out to buckets of expert domain information and expertise. But I don't think you're going to sit there saying, I might chat with my lawyer GPT today and my whatever GPT tomorrow. No, Samantha will know everything it needs to know. It's like, people apply human proclivities onto God. It's like that. It's like we're mapping human behavior onto AI. I think AI can be whatever you need it to be, and you just chat to that one personality you're comfortable with in the cloud.
I'm not surprised. I won't be surprised if a lot of people chat with like the Apple intelligence when it's just right on your phone. It's connected to ChatGPT. It's easy to bring up. It's easy to use. Ease of use and accessibility in distribution really is king in so many ways. And Apple has such incredible distribution for an AI.
I think we'll have just as many of these AI butler avatars, senior executive, as you called it, employee, as we do email accounts. So I think we'll have one for personal. I think we'll have one for our career. I think we'll have one for our family life and /health. And then I think your employer will issue one, which they will revoke upon the completion of your employment.
Ship it.
Yeah, I should do a blog post on that.
Did we just create a startup right here, boys?
No, I don't want to build that. Everybody's going to be building their own. I think that's kind of my point. Like most people don't just use only Google. They probably have like a Hotmail, Yahoo, a branded one, Outlook, and a work one.
I don't know about that.
But here's
search is only Google.
Yeah, here's the model. I think you're close. I think what happens is in an ideal world, you have your Samantha and you join a company. They invite your Samantha to have access to their corporate information. And so you get hired along with your Samantha, your own EA, your own digital AI EA in the cloud.
Yeah.
And I think your Samantha gets access to help you with your work. And then you leave work or you go to another employer and your Samantha goes right along with you. It's intelligence overlaid over knowledge. The problem that people I think are making is that they're conflating training with knowledge and with personalization. I think the training goes into creating the intelligence, the reasoning layer. And then the knowledge is your personal data set, your corporate data set, your family data set. That's just stuff you just load in on the fly. And then there's personalization, which is priceless. The Samantha you fall in love with, and I mean that figuratively and literally in some cases, is the one you're going to want to bring with you. The reasoning layer you trust, who you've tailored to your needs, and you just apply it to whatever piece of work you have to get done and whatever knowledge you have for it to work on.
Mm-hmm. Although there'll be caps on that. So like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple are not going to let you fall in love with their AI. So there's already limits on AI responsibility for that. So that's not the one. Although you can see that there's a group of this meme of teen girls that are hacking OpenAI and changing the actual voice and then training a GPT on it to be like a gentleman, and they're falling in love with that character. That's already happening. There's a whole YouTube thing on that.
You know what? I think all the safety limits on Apple Intelligence, not all of them, but many of them are just they're going to need to evaporate or Apple's going to lose that game.
No. That's what they promise, man. Safety is their promise.
They're going to need to throw that shit out because
it is the most trusted brand in the world. Apple has been tested. That is the most. They're not going to let that go. No, I disagree strongly.
I agree.
But asking it for permission to talk to ChatGPT every goddamn interaction is a failing strategy. It's a failed strategy.
Here's my take on that. So they're just getting the data on what people want to shove into GPT. No, this is all a Trojan horse that benefits Apple. Whatever it can't do, then it's going to broker it and send it to GPT, OpenAI. And of course, there's like probably some revenue exchange between that. And meanwhile, Apple's collecting all that information. Meanwhile, they're building new chips hardware so they can have it on-device, localized LLMs. Meanwhile, they're building their own version of foundational model so they can undercut OpenAI in about, 2-3 years. This is all a well-calculated plan to see who does it well, and they're going to do it better. That's what Apple does.
I think it's more of a stopgap plan, right? It's like, holy shit, we don't have anything that can compete.
Yes.
We need a stopgap, right? We need to hit.
I agree with that.
But we've talked about on the show before, does Apple need to build their own, or were they perfectly happy to outsource, search to Google and what have you? But I do think they probably want to build their own.
Just like when Steve Jobs said Flash is dangerous, it's in order to make people go to their media player, right? So it's going to happen.
I've just had an insight, which is that the line with these big tech companies between being an evil genius and just really fucking stupid is so fine, right? You can spin a lot of these moves as like, they're playing 4-dimensional chess, they're thinking 5 moves ahead, and it's just bad UI. And either is equally plausible. That's what's funny about it.
Well, I mean, the reality is that it's in the middle, right? It's a bunch of well-meaning people trying to hit their OKRs who need to go home to their families, who are trying their best, which is why on this show, I'm always just reticent to go, Google did this and Apple did that. And, they're so screwed up and they're so unethical. And it's just like, guys, have you ever worked at a major tech company? It's a bunch of small squads trying their best to do their best. Sure, they have cultural, quirks and biases.
Let's talk about startups then.
Well, yeah, I mean, but my point is,
we should be on a startup podcast or something.
we should do that.
Wait, this is the big tech podcast. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong
But
spot.
if you're a startup, you do have to know how the big tech companies work because that's who you're competing with a lot of the time.
Or partnering.
That's right. You're competing with small teams who have OKRs to hit, who are suffering from innovator's dilemma and want to go home to their kids. And so it's not impossible to beat them. We have a whole episode in the back catalog recently about innovator's dilemma and the opportunity for startups to disrupt the incumbents. So go listen to that.
Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Dovetail, FlowHealth, and Quora all use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Why aren't you? Get $1,000 off Vanta when you go to vanta.com/TSP. That's VANTA.com/TSP for the Startup Podcast to get $1,000 off.
But let's talk about startups. We want to talk about our third and final topic today, which is the state of AI investment. And we also want to talk about Llama Lounge as potentially a bellwether for the froth, the excitement, the energy that is in the AI landscape over here in Silicon Valley and around the world. So we happen to have Jeremiah on the show today, who is the creator, curator, and operator of the Llama Lounge. If you don't know, Llama Lounge is the #1 AI event globally, full stop, period. It is always sold out. It is super hard to get a ticket. It is personally curated by Jeremiah, and it has the best startups exhibiting, the best VCs in the room, and the best people around the ecosystem attending. Jeremiah, I think it's once every how many months?
7 or 8 per year. So we skip holiday season. But yeah, thanks, man. And I'm glad you were there for the first time last week. And so was Ben Parr. So Yaniv, we got to get you over.
Anyone who's anyone is there. So of course we're there.
Send me a ticket, mate.
But Jeremiah, tell us, from your read, you're talking to these VCs, they want to be in the room. You're talking to LPs, you're talking to these founders. What are you hearing in terms of the investment community? What are you seeing at your event? Just give us kind of the lay of the land in this cycle this month.
So the typical anatomy of a Llama Lounge event is 300 AI founders, and 10 AI founders are selected to demo, and 30% of those 10 are women. Right now, the waiting list is 550 companies that want to demo. Sometimes my friends, like Ben Parr, signals to me, hey, I know a great founder, and so we featured one of his companies, Wordware, who did a great job, by the way. And so it's really a place for these folks to meet. Now, typically there's 50 VCs, but at the last one on Thursday, 100 VCs registered. And so that was the largest that we've seen. So there's way over $100 billion assets under management in the room. So it really is a power room that it's becoming to. The wait list is usually 300 to 600, sometimes 1,000 people on the wait list when we're partnered with TechCrunch Disrupt. And the events are mostly in San Francisco. Sometimes there's lines down the street. So I didn't expect this to happen. I started off in a very humble pizza place. In fact, our first speaker was Ben Parr standing on a table doing ridiculous things. And there's a photo out there. Go find it. And so what we're seeing is the industry trends, Chris, is there are hundreds, if not thousands, of pre-seed AI startups birthing. So the website, there's an AI for that, which Ben Parr showed me a year ago. It was at that time, Ben, do you remember there's like 3,000 startups?
Something like that.
Today, there's over 13,000 startups. So that's around 1,000 per month that are launching. Obviously, this market can't sustain that. But I think the interesting thing is that the cost to launch an AI startup is extremely low because you can tap APIs and you can get credits. It's something people are doing in their moonlighting. The last point on that is that I don't talk about this in public very often, but I can see everybody who's registering. So obviously as a VC, this is great deal flow for me. But I can see there's, 20% of these folks work at a FANG company and they're preparing to leave that company if they can get traction. So that's what I'm seeing, but I'll love to hear from the other folks here.
Hey, Jeremiah, Ben, you'll remember one of our early Reacts episodes, you guys joined us, and one of us collectively, we talked about the first billion-dollar company with 3 people.
That was Ben.
Yeah, Ben, I think you raised that. And, I don't know if we're the only ones that came up with that whole cloth, but it's definitely in the water. Yeah. Sam Altman's talked about it. Many VCs have talked about it.
Yep.
I'd like to think they heard about it through the echo chamber, starting with us.
Oh, yeah. So I did a LinkedIn post crediting you both in the startup show, and it got over 1 million views on LinkedIn. It went viral. So it started here. That meme started here, and it came out of Ben Parr's mouth.
I wish I got 3% of all memes generated by me. I'd be a multimillionaire.
So it's okay. If any meme you invent, Chris Messina will take credit for it, so it's fine.
Wow.
So we will, these things are really capital efficient to build. And, there's questions about what is the role of VC here? How much capital is too much or enough? When will there be a $1 billion company that has like a really minimal set of staff? Greylock, my friend over, Christine Kim, who's a partner at Greylock, she was a product manager at Uber on my team, just put a call out 5 hours ago on LinkedIn asking for AI startups to come and talk to her and pitch her. It's called, Call for Startups, to Greylock, one of the top VC firms in the world. They just cannot get enough of this. It is, Yaniv, you and I, we talked about this at the beginning of the downturn. At the end of ZERP, we said, the game has not changed. FOMO will be back. And all that's happened during this period is that the rules have tightened. So stay lean, stay focused, keep your eye on the ball, which is disruption and growth, and don't do stupid things that dumb money tells you to do. And I think, this is evidence, and we're well and truly deep into the upswing here of the next major AI, I would say, bubble, actually.
Jeremiah, I'd love to get a sense of the sorts of startups that show up at Llama Lounge, because I think, for me at least, there's this distinction between AI startups and startups that are leveraging AI and its new capabilities to do things.
That's a great distinction. Okay, so sometimes we have different themes, like we'll have enterprise event, or one time we had an AI agents event with just 10 AI agents, and most of the people who attended were our agents. But in most cases, yes, most of these submissions that we're seeing is what I call applied AI. So maybe it was a Web 2 company or a sharing economy company or an existing company that bolted on AI. And if that's helped their business to grow, look, my job is to give returns to my LPs, so I will take a look at it. We might invest in it. In fact, my latest investment is applied AI, but AI is a big part of their growth strategy, so we're down with that. And then sometimes there's native or AI first companies, and most of those players are in SF and out of Shack 15 and Cerebral Valley area. And we look at those as well. So I want to see both of those. I'd say a mass majority of the market is applied AI.
Generally, my thesis is in the next couple of years, everything will just involve AI in the same way everything involves the internet. If you were pitching a fund right now and being like, hey, I have started a venture fund and we are investing in companies enabled by this new thing called the internet, they'd be like, you're insane. But that was how it was 20 years ago. And then mobile and, AI. But like the best funds will just write checks in the best companies and everything will have AI and you kind of evolve with it. And that's how I kind of see where things will eventually go. The best products will have AI and the lesser products won't. And there's almost always a use case, whether it's through and it's a lot of times not even generative. It'll be, pure machine learning or computer vision or something else. And there's some really amazing, crazy stuff I see in medicine and other areas that we don't talk a lot about that are under the radar, but could save people's lives. It'll just take time to go and implement.
We just had an episode about dumb things you can say pretty much to VCs, like, oh, we're looking for a financial partner, for example, instead of an investor. And we're just like, these yellow and red flags that just make you sound just a little bit out of touch. If you had said AI to me, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago before ChatGPT, I would have said, laughed you out of the room and said, stop talking nonsense and tell me what the problem is. These days, of course, AI is baked into every pitch, every story, everything. But, in terms of the pitches you're getting, tell us a little bit about what are the words that are pragmatic and clear-eyed and good signal that you hear? And what are some dumb examples of just buzzword bingo where you're like, oh my God, please just stop saying that?
buzzword bingo is easy. There's just God knows how many decks that are just like, multimodal, and it's just when a bunch of words you put together and it doesn't actually like say anything, because the best pitches are straightforward. You got to remember, investors, we're dumb. Like we're seeing we're seeing so many things. We don't have time to go and like deconstruct.
And we get like 30 seconds.
And just because you put a bunch of buzzwords together doesn't mean it's a good product or it's a product at all. So the best pitches are straightforward, and the ones that are like the best companies, the ones like I'm writing checks into, they solve an actual problem. The AI is secondary. It's like, here's an actual problem. It actually costs people lots of money or lots of pain or lots of time. And here's the direct solution. And here's how it works. And I can make it so that you or your grandmother or your chief information security officer understands it, whoever the target market is. And if you can't do that, it's not a company that you got to fix. You got to fix something.
I think I've heard it called AI washing, right? And it's something that happens, especially when you have a sort of a two-speed fundraising market, which, at least from my perspective, there definitely is. Would be interested in your thoughts. But there's this difference in the applied AI space between I am genuinely customer and problem-focused, and I've seen how I can leverage AI as a tool to create a more efficient, a better solution in some way, and just like slapping the word AI all over everything and saying, we're using AI to do this. It's like the rules haven't changed in the same way as a mobile or internet didn't change the rules. It's more like it has created a new solution space, but you still have to live in a problem space, right? And not just sort of jump straight to the tool.
It is worth unpacking what you just said, Ben, as a bit of it sounded a bit funny, but it's true. Investors are dumb, and that's not because of a lack of cognitive horsepower. That's because you are the domain expert. The startup founder is the domain expert, and they're busy and distracted, and they're capital allocators. They're not startup operators or experts in your domain. And so almost by definition, they are ignorant of the problem you're solving and the way you're solving it. And your job is to go in there and help bring them on a journey. And so in that sense, they are dumb. They're ignorant of what you're trying to say. And so you got to work to bring them along on that journey.
So 2 comments on that. I was a speaker at the V5 Summit in San Francisco, which is VCs that are adopting AI. And it was filled with VCs that are using AI to filter and or reach out or to analyze decks. So that's already starting to happen. That's wonderful in many ways and also horrible at the same time. So that's happening.
Who was it that said software is eating the world?
That's Mark Andreessen.
Mark Andreessen. So, the next thing is AI is eating software. And so, VC is going to get disrupted by AI the same way as everybody else. Probably the only thing that won't get disrupted by AI is, human care for other human beings.
No, that'll get disrupted.
Wait. VCs care a lot about other humans. I don't think we're going to be disrupted at all.
Well, I mean, robots that could feel and can like help you and like carry you and treat care of you when you're sick. That's a thing that will happen at some point. And AI will be a small part of it. But that's like a robotics revolution that I expect to like is starting to happen now, but is like takes longer just because of the restrictions of hardware. You need hardware to care about people is what I'm saying.
Maybe to be even more explicit, Jeremiah, Ben, like what is your advice to founders right now in the midst of this AI revolution?
Yes. So my advice to founders, so I'm a little bit later stage than earlier stage. So I'm usually writing seed stage checks. We have a very clear thesis. So what a founder should do is use GPT or any AI to go scrape the websites and the social media of the VCs to understand what they really want. And then also analyze their portfolio companies. So they should be doing proper research. And it's very easy to customize their message once they understand that a little bit, and then that'll resonate and I'll probably respond better. So that's key. Like I'm looking for startups that have product-led growth and network effects, and they're going to be in markets where there's going to be a clear winner. So when I see that language right away in the email, I go, oh, they're paying attention. I'm going to spend more time with that. So use AI to target your message to the investors. That's my advice.
I love when listeners reach out to me and use some of my catchphrases from the episode in the reach out to get my attention. That's really very cool. And just to be clear, Jeremiah, you're talking about Blitzscaling AI Fund, right? That's who we are.
Yes, I am. I run the AI Fund, general partner at Blitzscaling Ventures. Reid Hoffman is our major LP, and he reviews my deals before I invest.
I just wanted to ask a more pointed question because this is something I see quite a lot with the founders I talk to. They've been building their startup for a few years. It's not an AI startup, and then they've seen this wave come over them. They've found it hard to raise. And again, the good ones don't just want to engage in this AI washing where they're like, oh, yes, we're pretending to use AI. So when you see founders like that, startups like that, what's your advice to them in terms of being able to build a successful business in the midst of this technological change?
I think it's okay. So my fund is an AI fund, and so we're looking for AI first companies, and a majority of our deployments are that, but we've also invested in applied AI as well. Again, we're looking for them to have those growth metrics. At the end of the day, investors want to return money back to their LPs. So they're looking for fast growing companies that are going to generate revenue. So I think that's okay. So you want to lead with that message. I think it's kind of silly though, like just going forward a year or two, every single company is going to be AI. Like it's going to feel antiquated that I run an AI fund in just 3 or 4 years. We already knew that was going to happen. So it's totally fine. And by the way, we have a growth fund, the first fund, which would be a great fit for an existing company that is now adding on AI. So there's funds out there that this will fit.
I want to draw a very fine point to what you said, Jeremiah, because we have to remember this show has an EDU component to it. Every second episode is an educational episode, and we touch on these topics. What you said is a fast-growing company that can generate revenue, right?
Yes.
Too many of the companies that listen to us and that are outside of Silicon Valley think that revenue is the name of the game. We've talked ad nauseum about this. It's about growth.
It's about growth.
It's about growth. Startups are about hockey stick curves. They're not traditional businesses.
That is exactly right. And I don't think we're alone in this, in what we're looking for, because the revenue engines, you want to test it to see if there's product market fit that people might pay a small token amount. But in the future, you can turn on those revenue engines when you're Series B or C. You don't need to do it in your seed or pre-seed, or Series A, you're starting to do that.
To be clear, we're talking about venture-backed startups, which are different than traditional startups, right? Venture-backed startups, there's some math for if you take money from a VC, you are implying that you can build this into a multi-billion-dollar company because that's the only way VCs like Jeremiah and myself can get the returns. And that's just power law dynamics. We could go into a whole episode on just the math of VC. But like, look, there is a bit of like, you got to make sure that your business can grow and doesn't run out of all the money just because you're trying to grow. And like, if you're burning there's a ratio. There's all in the internet, ratios of how much you should be burning in order to increase growth.
CAC.
And if you're burning so much money without much growth, VCs are going to also see that. We're going to be like, no, that's insane. I would say this, don't burn a lot of money until you found product market fit. I really suggest to founders, especially the early stages, be lean until you have found something that kind of just grows organically on its own. It's going word of mouth. It's starting to speed up. If you spend money on ads or on sales, it's going to increase. And then it's a math problem. How much could you increase that spend and how can you scale to that next level? That's when you turn on the spigot. So until then, you have to find product market fit. Don't burn all your money until you found product market fit. And even when you think you've found product market fit, you probably haven't found product market fit. Product market fit feels very different. It's not like you're making a few $1,000s. It's people are signing up out of the blue and it makes no sense. And you're growing by tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars and you're seeing hockey stick growth and it feels slightly out of control or way out of control. That's piece of advice one. Second one, I'm going to go step out, is ignore the AI part for when you're thinking about your business. Does it actually solve a real problem? Is it a painkiller to a real problem that a business or people have that they're willing to spend money on? Because if it's not solving a real problem that people have and they're willing to spend a lot of money on, then it's probably not going to be a very big business or not a business at all. And the AI portion is just a means to an end and not the end unto itself.
One thing I'll add is we're looking for a product that will actually grow, product-led growth. And so we will discount any advertising or marketing spend because we want to see it actually viral spread, product-led growth. So, but I agree with everything Ben said.
And massive enterprise sales.
Founders
Network.
And also not just the sale, but that is an exit, right? It's can you sell to an enterprise? But there's no guarantee because that's been kind of slow lately.
All right, guys. Well, this has been an absolute banger of an episode. We love having you guys on. Jeremiah, how can people find you on the internet?
Yes, I'm on all the social networks as my last name, Jowyang, Owyang, and I'm out there.
Ben, how can people find you?
At Ben Parr and everything, BenParr on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever. You feel free to DM me your pitches. BenParr.com, my newsletter, also a place to submit your pitches. And Octane AI, if you're an e-commerce brand and you like making money, go to octaneai.com.
I love that pitch. If you're an e-commerce brand that likes making money, who's going to say no to that? I don't know. Yaniv, how can people find you?
I'm mostly on LinkedIn, trying to make it a little bit less boring, so post a bunch of content on there, and I love taking connection requests from TSP fans, so just let me know that's where you come from, and I'll accept your request.
And you can find me on all the social media at Chris Saad or at my newsletter, chrissaad.com/newsletter. Guys, tons of fun having you on the show. We'll catch you all in the next one.
Adios.
Thanks, gents.
All right. Thanks for having us. Good stuff.
Bye.
Today's episode of the Startup Podcast was brought to you by Vanta. Vanta automates compliance for SOC 2, ISO 27001, and more, saving you time and money while helping you build customer trust. Plus, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center, all powered by Vanta AI. Over 7,000 global companies already use Vanta. Why don't you? Get $1,000 off Vanta when you go to vanta.com/TSP. That's VANTA.com/TSP for the Startup Podcast to get $1,000 off.